behind us, right on the side of us. You could kind of see the thing moving through the woods.
All I can remember is flipping the light on, and I see this creature, and I knew in my heart, I knew in my mind, and the whole night, this isn't a man.
And then this thing walks across the road, takes a turn towards us, and then leaps over a guardrail.
Went to look forward, and there was a big black face.
Welcome to Squatch-D TV, exploring the Bigfoot mystery each week with your hosts, veteran researcher, author, and TV personality, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, and from the Bigfoot Research Project of Kentucky, Chris Bennett. Sit back and buckle up as we bring you guests from around North America discussing the Bigfoot phenomena, but not without a few laughs, too. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to this week's Squatch-D TV for today's date, October 9th, 2022. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, along with the main man down there from the great state of Kentucky, Mr. Chris Bennett.
Steve,
hello, Chris.
Good to see you, bud.
What's happening? What's happening?
Same old stuff. It's starting to cool up around here. The hot
Little
weather
bit,
is
yeah.
done. Yeah, we're almost ready to get to start turning the heaters on at night, but not yet. Not yet. It's
we've had the heat on because we've had a couple of nights that have dipped into the high 30s, low 40s.
Well,
so
I'm still on the frugal thing, so I'll probably end up throwing an extra blanket on for a little while, at least till maybe the 1st of December.
yeah. Yep.
But we almost got a late start today, and I apologize, folks. I was on pre-show. Me and Steve was talking about I got on a rant about the price of eggs.
Yeah, about the price of everything. Whoa. So hopefully, maybe down the road, everything will start coming down again. Who knows? But for now, it's just,
It's really tough right now. Yeah, but maybe we'll see some relief. Hope so.
Nikki down there in Texas just said, "Oh man, my air conditioner just kicked on." The benefits
Nikki,
of living.
I remember those days. Yeah, even in the dead of winter, the most we would need. Well, that was in Alamogordo, New Mexico. Now, so in the dead of winter, the most we would need was just a little light jacket, like a lane breaker or a rain breaker. Excuse me. And by that afternoon, hey, you're in the t-shirt, but mild weather. And I suppose it's got a lot milder, now.
Yeah. Yep. And let's do our weekly roll call.
Yeah.
According to the stats here, we have 41 in chat right now watching. So let's see who popped in. The first in this week was Ammon Chris. I don't know if he's still out there. Ammon Chris, yeah. Matt Rudy, Matthew, hello, Lance Windsor. Lance is in the house. Joe Joe Snyder from Western New York Bigfoot Investigation Group. Lester Taylor, hello. Mr. Lee 3PO, good to see you again, sir.
3PO.
Grasshopper is in the house. Uncle Bones in the house.
Uncle Bones.
Chessboard in the house as well. Says he's on the way back to the asylum, but we'll listen.
Oh, okay.
Of course, Mick is in the house saying happy Canadian Thanksgiving. If it's Thanksgiving in Canada, well, happy Thanksgiving.
All right.
Jay Fritz in the house. Of course, Nikki from Harry Man Hoaxes and Hoodwinks.
Nikki.
Who else? This is where I have to. Joe Dryden's in the house. Thank you. Brent from the Tall Ones is in the house. Finding the Trackway. Raptor Crazy.
Donald Fuller.
Going down. Lockbeard in the house. Lockbeard, hello. Of course, the missus is in the house as well.
Hi, Sherry.
Oh, there we are. Stephen Barcelo from the Cryptozoology and Paranormal Museum. Hello.
Steve.
Welcome. Glad to have you on board.
Yeah.
Low Rider in the house. Mark Henry. I know who Mark Henry is. Hello. And my good friend from the Buffalo area. Roger Bowles is in the house as well. And Angel Nolan. Let's not forget Angel.
Angel. Good to see you.
So I think we got everybody that's said something in chat. So hello, everybody. Welcome. And tonight we're going to do something a little savoir-faire. We are going to paste the invite link in the chat in a few seconds after we do our little weekly roundup of little cacophony of photos this week. None any good, at least not in my opinion. Unfortunately, that happens sometimes. But we'll and Jen is in the house. Hello, Jen.
Well, there was one interesting one, but we already know the story on that one.
Yes, yeah, it was interesting to look at, but like let's look at the so for those who don't know and are in the New York area, even the Ohio area, Pennsylvania area, October 22nd, I will be in at the Chautauqua Lake Bigfoot Expo on the beautiful Camp Oneasa in DeWittville, New York. They haven't had one in a few years thanks to COVID, but it's coming back, and it's going to be headlining will be Dr. Jeff Meldrum, myself, Seth Breedlove, Paul Matea, a great researcher out in the west area, and Peter Weimer will be talking as well. So it should be a really good time. Can't wait. And be good talking to Dr. Jeff again, not Dr. J, Dr. Jeff. We know who Dr. J is.
Yeah.
We certainly know who Dr. J is, don't we, folks? Yeah, we don't want to. No, we'll be Dr. Jeff. And
do they have a lake monster up at Lake Chautauqua?
No, not that I know.
They should have, because that would be cool. You can call him Chalky or something.
Chalky,
yeah. Chalky, yeah.
Call him something. But the interesting thing is Chautauqua had made the national news when that writer who wrote the Satanic Verses, I forget his name. But there was a fatwa put up against him by the radicals.
Yeah.
And
Anton something.
I forget his Adnan.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, somebody stabbed him, as he was on stage at the Chautauqua Institute.
Well,
and it's amazing because I pass by, I always pass by the Chautauqua Institute when I go to DeWittville to the conference, and very interesting place as it is, but it made the national news because of that. And, hopefully he'll recover. But yeah, that's it. Salman Rushdie. Thank you, Joe. Salman Rushdie. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like, wow.
Must have been a rough presentation to get stuck. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I've been having some bodyguards for my presentation this year.
Yeah, you better wear a bulletproof vest or something.
Or wear a helmet for the tomatoes.
I'm bringing a salad bowl.
Eggs, you know. Somebody brings a salad shooter.
Now.
A salad shooter. Wait a minute, who put the radishes in there?
Oh man!
But anyway, let's look at some of the pictures, and then we'll get into what we're gonna do. Finding the 3 hours drive. It's in range. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's a 4.5 hour drive for me. So, come visit. It'll be a great time. It's always a wonderful time there. There'll be a lot of interactions. You'll get to have one-on-one interactions with everybody speaking there, and exchange some ideas. It's really a great forum, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, let's pop up some of these pictures. This is picture number one.
Yeah.
Picture number one, a railroad. Kind of hard to say what that is. I mean, it could be, may not be. I don't know. You just don't know. There's not enough information on this one just yet. So I don't know. I don't know if I've seen this one before. This could be an old one too.
I've not.
I remember there was. That's right. It's not. But it's not. I'm thinking of one that was probably about 10 years ago. There was one off of a train as well, and I believe that was from Canada. I'm not quite sure where this one is. So I don't know.
It's interesting, but that's the thing. You don't really know what that is down there.
Right. And of course, this one was being passed around as being a true one. Oop, I don't have to do that. There we go. And this one was being passed around as being.
I like this one.
Yeah. And what this one is actually this is actually a recreation that Monster Quest did, that somebody basically screenshot and started posting around there as an actual Bigfoot. But you can. I don't know if Nikki's talking about this one or but this one is a CGI creation by Monster Quest.
Yeah. And Steve popped this one up. I was like, ooh.
And now we have this one, and this one's pretty telling as well. And I'm doing it again. There we are. So it's this one where it says, "Me, great English here. Me and my wife." For your English teachers, it should be "my wife and I." But me and my wife were riding around looking for deer last evening, and saw this around 200 yards away in a field, looking toward a deer. We have never seen anything like this in the field before. But, if you look at it, there is just, to me, I don't know. It just looks if they're moving, you notice how everything looks kind of blurry, but this thing kind of is very, obviously it was probably done with a FLIR or tried to mimic a thermal imager, possibly in dark mode. But the problem I have here is the object itself is dark.
Yeah.
If this is the door jamb to or part of the vehicle, or
right.
You're looking out the window and shooting that, that is the same color as that. Now, one would expect this area to be cold and this to be hot, so they should be contrasting colors. Wouldn't you think so, Chris?
Yeah, I would think. Well, we don't really know the whole story, though. They may have had the defrosters on or heater on.
But I don't think that would really.
That wasn't really my issue, though.
The issue is everything's blurry except this very sharp figure. It almost looks like it was kind of photoplopped in there. I don't know.
The black part is kind of pretty well defined, and then everything out around it is just washed out completely.
Yeah. So and you know what? Mark Henry said, or I'm sorry, who said that? Jen actually made a great statement. That may just be a cutout. Could be a cutout. That's why it's the same color as the door. That would make sense. And Hello Rider says it was taken with the new super quarter megapixel potato cam. And Lester says he sees Jesus. That's right.
Well, yeah, it's pretty much what got me. That's the only thing that really stands out to me is everything completely washed out. And then the figure itself is not, I'm not going to say high resolution, but there's some pretty clean edges, you know. So it's not washed out like the background right next to it.
Right, except the lower half, which is very interesting too. You can't see the lower. I mean,
right.
I'm not buying it for 1 second unless there's more information. I mean, obviously, where is the video to this, or why is it just a picture? So something doesn't really make sense.
Oh, if they made a clear video, that would be great to look at. That would be good. Yeah.
Well, as we know, videos are get more difficult to manipulate. Possible if you have the right skill set. Than a photo. Photos are a piece of cake to manipulate. Okay, so what are we going to do tonight? What we're going to do tonight is, for the first time ever, we used to do this when we were over on Blog Talk, Chris.
Yeah.
We used to have open line nights, call in the show, tell your story, tell your opinions on stuff, tell us off, whatever you want to do.
They got to be fun sometimes.
I got to, and we love that spontaneity, and just the type of show where you never know what's going to happen. Any beer tonight? No, actually, I'm drinking cider. This is actually an apple cider. I'm
still drinking ski. It looks like green. It kind of looks like antifreeze.
Well, I also have. The green screen. The green
wild.
screen. Yeah, the green screen kind of made my energy drink kind of disappear because it's lime green, same color as the green screen behind me. Oh, but you notice it's the green screen behind me.
Yeah,
it's pretty weird. Anyway,
we can see through you.
So we haven't done this since the Blog Talk days, and it's been a few years, probably a good 3.5 years since we had an open line night. So what we're going to do is we are now, if you want to tell your Bigfoot story, come on board. We're not going to beat you up. We want to hear it. This is the time to turn around the show. You want to come on and ask a question. You want to argue something we've said in the past. This is your time. This is the time to do it. We're going to put the invite code in the chat room. So, of course, you can use your smartphone on a browser. And so there it is. Should be out there in a second. So there it is, the chat room link. So if somebody wants to come on, tell their story, we'll put you on. Well, we're looking forward to hearing you. We haven't done this before. There are actually a couple shows that do this. I forget the name of it, but it's run by Mogion, and Arthur Watch just snuck in the chat room.
Hey,
so there you have it. And let's see if anybody will bite. The funny thing, this is a pure oh, look who popped on first. Hello, Joe.
Yeah, I didn't come on to tell my story. People have heard that enough, man. I just came out because I like being with you guys.
Good to see you, man.
So, and good to see you in good health. We know you had a couple of days in the hospital last month, a few days in the hospital last month, and unfortunate, but we're good to see you're up and smiling and podcasting again. And the amazing thing, Joe comes home from the hospital same day he's on YouTube.
Yeah, I think
That's
I was.
Tough.
Yeah. You were.
Yeah. Can't keep a good man down.
No, not at all. So, in case Chris doesn't even know this yet, Joe, but Chris does not even know this, but on October 30th, the show of October 30th, the day before Halloween, we were not going to be able to have a show because I'm having oral surgery on the 28th, and I don't think my mouth will be in full gear to handle a show. So I've asked Joe if he could guest host the show. I'll still be in the background running, making sure everything runs right, and do a show. And if I'm able to say a few words, I'll say a few words. But I'll keep completely off it, and Joe will have the wheelhouse, and Chris will be there to back him up. I think it'll be a fun time, and that way we keep the show going.
Me and you, Chris.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, there you go. Everybody's trying to coax Don Fuller to come on. Come on, Don.
Come on, we don't bite.
Yeah.
There's the link again. But yeah, I think now, Joe, you're having an interesting show tomorrow. We won't get into the nuts and bolts of that, but you'll be on with Leon.
Yep. Coming on with me.
Yeah, with our good friend Bigfoot Okanagan, who is back in action as much as he can be. So really, really cool thing. And it's good to see him popping around. Surprised we haven't seen him slide in today.
Yeah, who's out there?
And Mick just said, Steve, I thought this was an open blouse show. You guys have your shirts on.
You don't want to see this, man, without
a shirt.
You don't want to see this without a shirt. Just
me.
Oh, and people are giving it to Don to come on. I would, but Steve never saw me backstage. He didn't even see me during. What? Steve would never see me backstage, during shout outs or shootouts. Oh, come on, Don. It'd be fun to have.
Yeah, man.
If you feel like you're ready, Donald, because Donald's been telling, basically that he's it's still traumatic, and I told him to wait, and he'll know when he's ready to tell it. And if you are, man, I'd love to hear it myself.
Yep, absolutely. But yeah, and Joe, I understand you may be making it to Chautauqua as well. That would be awesome.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I'm not gonna be a speaker, man, but I'm just coming to watch one guy speak, really.
I know Dr. Meldrum's going to be there.
No. That's what you ruined it, man. You were going to say, I was waiting for you to say, yeah, me. And I was like, no, Meldrum. But
I see, I ruined it. Nice try. That's right, Don. Again, if you're not ready, that's okay. Yeah. But at some time, even if you just want to call me and tell your story, my number's always there for you, brother.
Yep.
And, Dave Groves, who's a good buddy of mine, lives out in the Ohio area. He, too, was very traumatized. And by actually getting him up and talking about it, really pushed him to feel a lot better about it as well.
Yeah.
So, and that's a real cool thing. I mean, let's face it. And I talk about this quite a bit. If this thing is not in your campsite in your head, and then all of a sudden there it is, that's going to cause some people, in certain cases, PTSD. It's a trauma. I mean, Joe, you yourself, what kind of? I mean, how much did it haunt you afterwards?
Huh?
How much did it haunt you after your sighting?
It still does. But I mean, I had PTSD previous to that whole thing, but so it didn't help any when it came to PTSD. But honestly, yeah, it still haunts me. Still, I mean, it's still pretty fresh. It's only a little over 2 years ago that it happened. So,
another question for you is, did it did you have recurring nightmares about it too? I mean, was it something you dreamt about actively?
Actually, no. I did have one dream about it, but I wouldn't say nightmares. No, I at least I don't recall them. Yeah. But I did have one pretty vivid dream. I still recall that, and and it was it it was the way most dreams go, you know. I was living somewhere that's not actually where I live right now, but I was living somewhere, and somebody came over and they were like, "Man, you got to see it. You got to see it. They got one. They got one." And I'm like, "They got one what, man?" He's like, "They got a Sasquatch. He's on a train car in a cage on a train car down a street. It's a crossing." And I'm like, "Okay, so I got to go see this." So I go running down there, and then of course the dream jumps from me leaving to go there. Then all of a sudden I'm there, and I see the cage, and I see this huge hairy hominid in this cage, and it's got its back towards the, you know, and I walk up to the cage and I'm looking, I'm like, holy shit, that's really real. And then he turns around and it's Rasta.
Gotcha.
And in my dream, I was like, no, man, no. You guys got to let him go. You got to let him go. You have to let him go. And so they're like, we're not letting him go. Are you kidding? This is the find of the century and all this other stuff. I'm like, no, you got to let him go. He doesn't belong in there. You got to let him go. And then so I'm like, all right, I'm going to let him go. But so then again, as dreams do, it switches, and suddenly it's nighttime, and I'm walking up to the cage. There's nobody around, nobody guarding it, right? This is how dreams go. There's no guards. There's no security. And I walk up. I got a pair of bolt cutters, and I walk up, and there's Rossi. He's squatted in the corner of the cage, and he sees me. And he stands up, and I show him the bolt cutters, and I go, okay, man, I'm gonna let you out of here. And when I cut this bolt, or when I cut this lock and let you out, don't eat me.
Don't
and
hurt
I
me.
cut the lock, and I opened the door, and he stepped out, and that's when the dream ended. So,
yeah, I just want to add what Lester said to Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks. You want to pop on in, go right ahead, grab the link, come on in. You know, all you need is an Android phone, you're an iPhone or a computer, and pop on over. And
that's the only thing I can recall having after it.
Yep.
Not everybody wants to talk about their experiences, and it's fine.
No, and that's fine too. Yep, absolutely. And Don, we understand, brother. So I understand that you know.
But just to reiterate, Donald, you could call any one of us individually, privately. You could call Steve, you could call me, you could call Leon. And if you wanted to talk about it privately with any of us, man, we'd be willing to listen to you and help you through it if it's really so causing you. You know, I'm not a psychologist, man, but maybe just through my own experience and dealing with being basically traumatized myself, I might be able to help you out. I don't know, but you could talk to any one of us, man, privately, if you wanted to do that before you told everybody else, you know.
So matching the shed, SWA is cooking dinner, which I completely understand, both of you guys. Matt, what the hell are you doing in the shed?
Yeah. Oh, he's probably working on a new camera mount. Betcha.
Probably.
Yeah.
Designing a new what do you call them things?
Gimbal. Oh,
new gimbal.
Hey.
Gimbal. Thank you.
Em and Chris, good to see you, brother.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Welcome.
Right on. I'm on mobile out in Oklahoma. First time caller, long time listener. Just wanted to say keep up the good work, guys.
Oh, thank you, sir.
We appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Got any good stories for us?
Well, I don't know what you want to hear.
Whatever you want to talk about. This is your guys' show. If you want to talk about a sighting or your research or anything you want to talk about, open board. Floor's yours.
I just want to say I think that Bigfoot is an ape, the same that I am.
Amen. I believe it too. Flesh and blood.
I feel that covers both bases as far as like, you know, ape versus person versus, you know, whatever.
Yep.
Maybe I don't think highly of people, but, you know, I feel we're apes, we're animals too.
Yep.
But anyway, that's all. You guys have a great night.
All right, you too, Am and Chris. Thanks for calling in, brother.
Thanks.
Well, that was awesome. It's nice to see a face to
Yeah.
some folks there. But yeah,
Now I get.
we were kind of going through a list. Yes, Joe.
I said, yeah. Now you kind of. I have a. I see him in the chat, so now I got a face to put with the name now. Yeah, cool.
Now I got a. I was having thoughts about. Well, we put this out in there. Who doesn't like us that sees that link and is pondering upon coming on.
Is his initials RD?
Could be. You never know, but he's not here. But then again, Dyer doesn't hate my guts. RR. There's somebody that could show up. And you know who I'm talking about, Joe.
Oh, I know.
Wait.
Oh.
Yeah, think about this.
Kind of like a candy.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Or a cough drop.
Cough drop.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
Need a cough drop.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm surprised we haven't seen him to take his opportunity to try to. But that's the way it is. People are feel fine about not confronting other people. I kind of, the one we talked about first, RD, he would do that if he probably knew. But I wasn't going to make that well known to him or.
Well, any chance to get his face out there, he'll
but
take it, guaranteed.
Yeah. But it'd be nice to like somebody come on and say, well, I don't believe that Bigfoot's flesh and blood, and I think you're wrong. Well, let's talk about it.
I am willing to look at any actual real evidence that somebody can put forth that supports that. I'm willing to look at it.
Well, there's a question.
Got real evidence.
Steve, haven't you made peace with Richter yet? No, not at all. Not at all. Somebody needs to apologize and that, no. Call me a fraud because I have a difference of opinion with him.
Yeah.
Sorry. No beans. Nope. I'm sorry. He wants to play the victim card all the time. How many people has he turned, his back on? And unfortunately, that's one of the sad things about that. He has, stabbed many of people that he called friend in the back, and that's it, see ya. I've got better time. And my time is precious, and I'd rather be spending it with people that, are friends, not somebody that's going to put a knife into your back. Yep. And even Nikki said that too, as well. He turned against me too. Of course, what friend hasn't he turned his back on? Unfortunately, that's the way it goes. He has his opinion. I have mine. But, it's very, very strange how he cozies up to people, tries to get them for a lot of information and tries to get in the know, and then turns around, stabs in the back when he feels that, you're no good to them or you don't agree with him. And unfortunately, I have no time for that, no use for those kind of people. I have no use for, people that say they're my friend and then act otherwise. Mm-hmm. Simple as that. Right. Or at least call me and discuss it. So,
right. Oh, by the way, Steve, I don't know if you mentioned this or not. Again, we like to say it, for the people that are camera shy, you can always hit stop cam if you're right. Camera shy, and you can hit stop cam and you'll see a little circle. If you don't have an avatar loaded up, you'll see a little circle, and you can still tell your story.
Yeah. And I appreciate Nikki. I appreciate your comment, Don and Lester. I just don't want to sit there and bash him. It is what it is. It's over, done with. I could care less. Moving on from that. He is a non-issue in the Bigfoot community anyway. So,
Well, since we got Joe up here, I'm going to ask Joe some questions.
Uh-oh.
Raptor crazy. I'm sending that right along.
This is not going to be a difficult question. I'm not going to put you on the spot, Joe.
No,
I just wanted to ask.
Go ahead, man. You can ask me anything you want.
You know, with your sighting, and I'm sure you've played this back a million times, okay? But do you have any regrets from having that sighting? Something you should have done or could have done differently that you didn't do then?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I talked about this the other day. The frustration that I have is that I was totally unprepared for it because I wasn't out there doing an investigation. I was just going out to get my damn hiking stick that I'd left out there. And so I didn't have any cameras with me except for my phone, which was in my back pocket. And I have lots of regrets, man. I said this the other day, and I'm not being facetious or over-grandizing when I say this. I probably could have had like something on camera that rivaled frickin' the PG film, man, that day.
Now, I don't know who,
because, if I'd had a GoPro on my chest, if I'd have had a camera running, I totally regret that. I wish I'd have been more prepared, but I mean, how can you be prepared for something like that? Now, had I been like, okay, I'm going out camping and I'm going to be there camping, I'm always taking my cameras when I go camping and I'm always having them running. But this was like just a day trip going out there to get that damn hiking stick. So I had no plans. And so totally unprepared. And the whole thing was so unexpected and downright frightening that camera phone in my back pocket was just totally forgotten. There was no reaching in my back pocket to fiddle with a phone when I got this 7.5 foot hairy fucking scary looking thing looking at me with a look on its face like, you just totally screwed me, dude.
So, we have somebody here, Jane Nomo Erectus. And hello, how are you tonight?
Oh, Jay.
And he is gone.
He's having
that was brief, but maybe Jay's having some technical difficulties, maybe.
Genomus erectus.
I love that. Yeah, J. Nomo erectus.
Maybe he needs a Viagra if he's got an erectus nomo.
One of them little blue pills.
Come on, that was good, Chris. I saw you.
That was pretty good, man. I'm stuck on the chat over here. He'll be back. Okay.
I was last to call in. People are tired. Finding the chat, I said, last to call in. People are tired of hearing from me. Oh, we're not.
But that was a good question, Chris, because nobody's ever actually asked me outright that question. So,
yeah, it's you get to thinking about it, and well, what could I have done differently? What should I have done differently?
Mm-hmm.
And it plays on your mind, doesn't it?
It sure the hell does, man. Sure the hell does.
Yeah, but given what you know now, do you really wish you had done something different?
Well, other than, no. I get what you're asking, and no. Because if I'd have done anything else differently, I would have never had the encounter in the first place.
Right. And look at, I mean, when you sum everything up, would you consider it more of a positive experience now? Given the fact that you've entered this and you have so many people, that, you've met over the years,
Yeah, for me, I mean, Well, it is definitely a positive thing in my mind, because absolutely, I don't have to. I've had at least one question now about Bigfoot answered for me, and that is, do they exist?
Hey, hello to Jeff from Pine Island Research. He's in the house.
So yeah, I mean, I mean, you can take the encounter for what it's worth. But as a it's a positive thing for me. Sure.
Very interesting stuff going on in the chat today, but everybody's having a good time. And that's let me pop that.
I'll get to reading the chat here, and I'm just off in another world. It's really hopping.
Yeah, it is. All right, let's see if we can get him on again. Hello, Jay, you there?
He's doing the thumbs down. He's having audio problems.
Okay.
Mr. Lee. No, Mr. Lee, I'm not saying it at all. Mr. Lee want to know, says, Joe, you wish you wouldn't have seen Sasquatch, maybe a different life then? No, I don't wish I hadn't seen it at all. I'm happy. And as a matter of fact, I mean, if it weren't, and I don't mean that encounter in particular, but if it weren't for Bigfoot, the whole phenomenon, I probably wouldn't know half the people I know now. And I'd be missing out on some really good friends like Steve and Chris.
Do you guys, Joe, do you know Jay?
Oh, I do know Jay. Mr. Jay.
Okay, he just popped off, so I don't know what's.
Yeah. Jay's a good old codger, man. And he's got one hell of a, I don't know if you'd ever heard his before. I know a lot of people in the chat have heard his encounter when he was 18, and I've heard it. And yeah, man, it's pretty cool. I mean, it wasn't for him when he was 18, but I'm not going to tell his story. He can tell it himself. If he wants to, but yeah, I as far as credibility goes, I give him all the credibility in the world. I absolutely believe that what happened, what he says that happened. Absolutely.
You know, have you ever heard of I know a lot of different encounters in your areas, in my areas, I should say. And it never ceases to amaze me when you're talking to somebody new and they turn around, they say, oh, by the way, I had this sighting, when I was such and such age over here. And in the back of my mind is like, yeah, well, he just had a sighting over there like 2 years ago in the same exact area.
Yeah.
And that, to me, just adds so much credibility to the mystery.
Yeah.
Adds credibility to the sighting. And, it was just really, and I'll never forget, it was at this soccer camp and we were investigating the sighting. And then like a year later, I talked to a police officer that talks about when he was 18 and being a security guard at the soccer camp, he had an encounter. And I was like, what? We were just up there a couple of years ago. This is, and his encounter goes, on like 18 years prior to that or 20 years prior to that. So to me, that is just so monumental as far as, it's not evidence, but it's evidence, it's kind of hard, between us researchers. I mean, it's not science evidence, but between it's investigative evidence that, hey, this is the area we need to be. So.
And sometimes too, things can happen, Steve, and it automatically starts clicking, like where before you had no thought of anything could be related to Bigfoot activity, Right. And then when you think about something that happened years ago, and then you start putting two and two together, you're like, wait a minute, that was kind of odd, that may be explainable by something else that happened.
Chessboard just said something really funny in there. Steve, Jay's beyond Viagra. He needs 2 popsicle sticks and duct tape.
Terrible. That's terrible.
Well, I mean, Steve, let me ask you a question. I mean, pretty much, I've heard you've told me what you saw out there where I keep wanting to go to camp, right? And that camping spot. So wouldn't you say that pretty much the question of existence is pretty much answered for you? Now you're just trying to gather more evidence to figure out what we're all trying to figure out. What are they exactly? What do they do it? You know, all that stuff, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, to me, when the sightings happened, it was like, okay, there is no doubt that these things exist. I mean, I pretty much was in that camp after talking to so many people, but you always have that reservation, like, maybe not. And then all of a sudden, boom, and now it's completely gone. But I was lucky in the sense that there are some people that and we've talked about this on the show. Okay, got you, Jay. Working on my StreamYard. Don't bring me on until I give you a thumbs up backstage. Okay, well, roger that. I always look at each case individually as a separate crime per se. So the problem is that we've had so many people come on, I'm waiting. Jay is in, but I'm just waiting for his thumbs up. And we just lost him. I'm sorry, I lost my train wreck of thought there for a minute. But you look at everything individually, no matter what. But we've seen this in our in our background. Obviously, in our research, we've seen people that have had sightings, and then they lose every single bit of I don't want to say reality, but they become extremely biased. Their perception changes to everything is a Bigfoot now.
Well, you have
every
the
picture,
when you have the first sighting, it's like after that, oh my God, everything is Bigfoot. Yeah.
Right. But not everybody. I mean, I was, but yeah, or you take a picture, you start taking pictures of woods and you're seeing Bigfoot in every shadow, or every bump in the night becomes a Bigfoot. And we've seen that. I've seen that in all of those manifestations. And that's what I call it, is basically a manifestation. We do have a couple of questions in the chat. What evidence you have so far? The best piece of evidence I had was the 4Dan cast, because a year and a half later, there was the same individual was cast about a mile away by a different researcher, and it showed different toe splay, which means we're looking at a biological foot, not a stamper. That was probably the strongest piece of evidence that I've collected myself. Like I said, any video and any picture is, always ambiguous. And it will be, no matter, even if you get a face shot of it, it's going to be ambiguous, because people will say it's a mask, or it's this, or it's that, or science. It doesn't matter what you bring up, or even audio. You're not going to bring anything up that science will not argue. Science will have a hard time arguing that. Well, how can you explain this print and this print? Year and a half apart, all that. But I digress. Now, the next question is, can Steve give a run through of his experience? Well, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version, because I've said this 1,000 times on the show. But I was in my research area with my team. We were after a few hours out in the field, we came in to debrief a little bit, warm up, get some food, and then head back out. While we were doing that, I went out to my vehicle to get batteries along this dirt road, which leads down to the areas we're in. And at which point I started shining my light around. There was one standing there watching basically our camp. And it looked at me, and basically I moved the light and it disappeared. And, the people on my team, especially the base camp, heard it moving about. A couple other people found the scuff mark where it stepped into the ground. And there was a lot of eye shine stuff going on that night, which I can't explain. But that was my first sighting. My second sighting was a year later. I was getting out of my tent to use a tree, and I saw a 5.5-foot juvenile just take off from wherever it was standing. It heard me get out of the tent and it took off. And I just caught the tail end of it. I didn't want to believe it at first. And the next morning there was something had left a log behind one of the participants' vehicles. So, and it wasn't there at 11 o'clock the night prior. So, take it for what it's worth, but definitely some real interesting stuff. Steve Chris, do you think it's fair for people to criticize, denounce any researchers who experiment with foot track creation for purposes of research? Oh, that's a good question. So what you're saying is somebody who hoaxes a bunch of footprints to see what people would say about them.
That wouldn't be good.
It wouldn't, and the reason why is, what value does that have? What scientific value does that have? Because it's not done enough times in enough places across different cultures and different, peoples of different income levels and stuff like that to be a sociological or psychological experiment. So it makes no sense why somebody would do that. Yeah. I've never seen the, why, so I can have an I gotcha moment. I don't think it's good juju at all to do that.
Hey, there's Leon.
Hey, Leon is in the house.
Leon.
But Finding a Trackway asks, are these things really that fast? They're pretty fast. The 5.5-foot one was gone. Of course, I only see it for that split second, but it was like gone. So yeah, it was fast. It probably took off about, I'm guessing maybe about 15 to 20 miles an hour. But if you think about it, your field of vision, something going by 15 miles an hour into a tree line really is not a lot of time. See, that's the one thing I try to explain to people. I think they're super fast, and that's why they got to be superhuman. Well, really, if you think about it, put a sign in a yard and drive by it doing 20 miles an hour, and it goes by like this.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised. Jen asked, what color was the eye shine? I've seen greenish yellow. I saw like a reddish orange. It was like a dark seeded orange, not quite red, but not quite orange either.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what we were talking about. That made chills go up my spine. Me and you were talking about comparing, because that one time that I've seen eye shine near my camp, and that was before I had my encounter. Because it was kind of amberish, that kind of orangish, reddish, the amber color, which I was like, holy shit, that's kind of what I saw too, Steve.
What's screwed up? I'm looking at my play screen up on the thing, and I just realized that saying Joe's talking, but I don't see or hear anything, and I'm looking at the wrong screen. But there we are. We have Charlie Wonton in the house.
Hey, Charlie.
And flying squirrels, and flying squirrels have pretty big eyes too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do have big eyes for little critters. But yeah, it definitely played out in my mind. The first one especially played out in my mind for quite some time. Driving home, I remember just going, "Holy, what did I see? What did I just see?"
Yeah. You get a lot of different eye shine in Kentucky, but if you run across a red or orange amber type color, specifically red, yeah, better take a second look.
And then again, eye shine. Eyeshine can differentiate, of course, the type of light being used,
Yeah.
angle of refraction, humidity, power of the light. It can change quite a bit.
That's
Some of
why
the
I
stuff.
was, that's why I was wondering if that had something to do with the color I was seeing, because I wasn't shining any kind of. It was just I caught that eye shine just from the firelight from my fire was catching the eyes, so I didn't know. And
Don asked,
I don't know if it was actually a Bigfoot. The eyes were pretty far up off the ground, and I did hear something walking up, like it was pretty unconcerned. I thought it was actually going to be a person that walked into my camp and say, "Hey man, what's up?" or whatever, because I actually heard it walking up like totally unconcerned. And then when I looked, and it stopped, and when I looked up, and I didn't see anything at first, and I was just playing the harmonica really badly like I do, and I kept playing the harmonica, and I looked up, and that's when I caught the eye shine. I'm like, that's pretty high up. So my mind starts going, is it an owl sitting in a tree or whatever? But then it disappeared. And I realized when I heard it walking away, the reason they disappeared is because it turned around. Whatever it was, turned around and walked. So was it a Bigfoot? I don't know. In my mind, to be honest, I will say that I've always thought that it was a Bigfoot. Can I be absolutely positive because all I saw was eye shine and heard some noise? No, I guess I can't be 100% sure.
Sure. But I mean, you also have to think too. You have to think as well. Am I being biased because I had a traumatic sighting? Now I hear something and we go to that default. Something's walking around large. Its eyes are high off the ground.
Right. After the fact, because I had that encounter. So could my encounter be affecting that memory previous of seeing eye shine and going, "Oh wow, that must have been Rasta"? Well, I don't know that. I don't know that for 100%.
Yeah, one of the big things is like, especially like in my area, you saw that on the Lincoln Mountain episode we had last year. I believe it was episode 72. That's okay, Jay. And Jay can't get it to work, so for whatever reason. Jay, if anything, I don't know, it may be in the settings of the StreamYard. If you hit that little cog on there that says settings on your StreamYard panel, you may have to select it to the proper audio, the proper audio feed. So feel free to give it a try if you want. If not, we'll get you hooked up some other time. Hey, and it's Jeff from Pine Island Research. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
Good, sir.
Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
Better come on and say hi.
Hello. And
that's a nice cow hat.
Yeah, I wore it for Derek. So if Derek's in the chat, he can identify.
But let me just finish what I was saying to Joe. It's like when we went to Lincoln Mountain, I remember hearing that walking, and I turned around and said, whoa, I don't want people to think that I think a Bigfoot's walking toward me. Could be a bear. It could be a moose, because we do have moose in that area too. So, and that's what I was more afraid of. It was, if I knew it was a Bigfoot, I'd be like, okay, good. But I didn't. And my first thought was on the more common apex predators that are out there. And even though a moose is not carnivorous, it sure stomped my ass.
Yeah, they can be dangerous, man. That's what I heard.
There's very few animals that you don't want walking up on you more than a moose.
That's what I've heard. I've never actually seen a moose in the wild. I know that there's certain places in the Adirondacks where there are moose. But I've never seen I've seen moose tracks and I've seen moose scat. So therefore, I'm pretty sure that they're there. I've never actually seen a moose, but I've always heard that, and I know they're huge. And I know that, but the first time I ever heard somebody said, man, be careful of moose. They're really dangerous. I'm like, what? It's a moose. But then again, I never thought a white-tailed buck could be dangerous.
Yeah.
Until
Well,
I could
moose get
walk
up to
that
1,800 pounds, I mean,
So-
it's just, and they have very poor eyesight. So they get nervous easily when they're close to something and they can't immediately identify what it is. Now they start freaking out. And I think they say, I've seen it here, moose are one of the most displaced big game animals there are. I mean, we see moose in the middle of cornfields in Iowa, South Dakota. I mean, how they get 700-800 miles out of their normal range is beyond me, but every year they show up in cornfields around down here in the Dakotas.
They take an Uber. We know they don't do Lyft.
Well, I have archery hunted moose before up in Manitoba.
Wow.
And one of the interesting things about them, when you get them in, even when they're 40, 50 yards away, these guides will hold canoe paddles up and just rock back and forth because that moose their eyesight is so bad. They actually think from 40 yards away, that's another bull moose.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why they go after dogs too, because they think they're wolves. There's not really. They do not like big dogs at all. Yeah, I would not want to. So what's new? What's new, Jeff?
Oh, not a lot. Just getting out of just finishing doing some writing, and we got pheasant hunting season starting out here. That's about as big as Christmas in the upper Midwest here. So.
And Chris says, how flippin' big is the arrow you used to shoot a moose with?
Well, I hunt whitetail with a 400 grain arrow. The whole total weight of the arrow is about 400 grains, but with moose, it's usually around 650 grain weight of the arrow. So it's just a little bit heavier shaft. The broadhead really isn't any different. Most people will not, I don't know if you're familiar with a lot of these archery broadheads. Some of them are expandable where they flip open. And those mechanical style broadheads, they don't like using those on moose because they break. You want a nice big old style 2 or 3 bladed broadhead that can go through a rib bone, if it had to.
Yeah. I think those expanding ones aren't allowed in New York State.
Yeah, some of them are allowed. They can't total more than like 1.25 inches in diameter. They have a cutting diameter, but I know there's still some states that don't allow them just because they are prone to failure. And
well, there's no way you could put me in the same field with a moose and me have a bow and arrow. No, that's not happening. I want a 50 BMG or something huge.
Well, the guide that I hunted with when I was archery hunting moose, he had a 338 Lapua and he had a Desert Eagle 50 cal. Just because of the bear and everything else that are
right.
There. So
it's not the guy that does how to hunt, right?
Yeah. No.
Oh Lord.
You mean how to read emails?
Yeah. Has anybody ever seen him hunt? I mean, the property in his background looks like it'd be fun to hunt, but I've never, I know in the old day before he started doing this, he did hunting videos, but I've never seen any of them.
Yeah, and you never see him looking for Bigfoot in the field either.
Well, he's always got the sat phone with the crew up somewhere, calling him, telling him everything, but he's never there with them, it seems like.
Hang on a second.
The nicest thing I can say about him myself is that if he was really a good hunting guide and etc., and he may have been, he probably should have stuck with that.
I knew you were going to say that.
How you doing? I got this email yesterday. Guy saw a Sasquatch crossing the road. And asked him for $1 because he needed lunch. But anyway. I'm sorry, I didn't put the swank background of the mountains behind me, but
Yes.
I
You gotta have mountains in the background and standing.
We
in
have a
snow.
thumbs up. Hey, we got a thumbs up. Hello, Jay.
Finally, I don't know what the world's going on with my YouTube.
You spill a chocolate malt on your.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. No, I can sign in to the studio, but it won't let me X out of YouTube.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. But I finally figured out something. I don't know what I did. How's it going, guys?
It's going wonderful.
Good.
Well, it's good to see a face to a name we see most weeks here in chat. So
Good to see you,
Yeah.
Jay.
Yeah.
So I understand that you have quite the incredible story as an 18-year-old, and we would be honored if you would tell us it.
Oh, everybody's heard it, Steve. Everybody, I think you and Chris are the only one that never heard it.
Probably.
Well, if the folks don't mind,
Hang on a second. Hang on a second. We have Killer Clown. Hello, Killer Clown. Okay, that's creepy.
started Halloween early.
We got one.
Do. Well, what do you know?
Well, Jay, I will tell you, I would not mind listening to it again because I've heard you share it several times, and it's always great to hear you share it if you're willing to.
I won't tell the long version. I won't tell the long-winded version. How's that? I was born in Western Kentucky, over around 20 miles from Land Between the Lakes. Okay. And we had a big farm. My dad had a big farm. We had 2,400 acres. And I know Chris knows what the LBL is, and I think you've been there, haven't you, Steve?
I sure have.
Big place, isn't it?
Yeah, huge.
A lot of woods. And LBL runs all the way from the dams at Kentucky and Barkley Lake all the way into Tennessee, and then it turns into the Trace all the way to the Mississippi River. So you're talking about 400 miles of woods, okay? Well, that's where I was born and raised, okay? I hunted. My dad bought me a 410 when I was 9 years old, taught me how to shoot it and everything. And I started squirrel hunting and rabbit hunting, and I loved squirrel hunt. I mean, I literally loved to squirrel hunt. And back in those days, in 1966, you squirrel hunted to make money. That's how I went on dates and things, you know. I'd get if I didn't tear the squirrel up bad, or the rabbit, or the quail, whatever I was shooting, I would get a quarter for a squirrel. I'd get a quarter for a quail. I'd get 50 cents for a rabbit. I always tried to head shoot them if I could, you know, because if I got a headshot squirrel, I'd get 50 cents for it. Okay. And so I used to squirrel hunt in the state of Kentucky. Back in those days, squirrel season always came in on the 15th or the 17th of August, always. So I was ready. I just graduated from high school, just turned 18 years old, and getting ready to go to college. So I knew I had about a month before college started. Austin P University. You know where that's at, Chris? You heard of that, I know.
Austin P.
Austin P, yeah. Go P. That's, you remember the football or basketball game? They say go P.
I'm not familiar with it, but that's over in Western Kentucky. So maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. To get back to my story, I was ready to go. And by the time I was 18, I'd already graduated to a 22 long rifle, Ruger, 1022 Ruger. Oh, yeah. I had a 10-power Leopold scope on it. Mm-hmm. You look at that scope and a darn squirrel looked like a groundhog. That's what it looked like. Let me dip. Hold on. So I was ready. Squirrel season came in on the 17th that year. I remember that well because this happened to me on the 19th. Went to 17th, got a limit of squirrels, came back home. Went to 18th, got a limit of squirrels, even popped a couple of rabbits on the way back home. The woods I was hunting wasn't my property. It was across the way from me on a ridge on a neighbor's property, another farm. And had a creek that ran right through his property. And this creek was kind of up on a ridge, about a 50-foot ridge. I walked into the woods that day. It was a half, 3/4 mile walk to get to where I was going. I mean, I hunted all over that country, but it's first day of the season. I went to the easiest place, first few days.
Yeah.
So I got in there that morning on the 19th, right at a little bit before daybreak, and I had this big old stump. It was sitting right under a gumball tree, and gumballs, Chris knows this, gumball is a great big tall tree, and the nuts on them a little bit bigger than a walnut, but they're bitter. Oh, they're so bitter that humans can't even eat them, but squirrels love them, I'm telling you. And I always sat under that tree because I always pop a couple up from under that tree, and then I'd move on, Well, that morning I was sitting there under that stump, breaking daylight. I heard these pigs squealing off in the distance, and we had wild boar in that area, big ones, I mean. And I heard these pigs squealing. They were a distance away, but I could hear them pretty good, and they kept getting closer and closer and closer. Well, there was a trail where I came in on where us kids, we used to ride bikes and motorcycles and all kind of stuff through them woods. We spent our whole life in those woods, all over that area. And I was sitting there on that stump, and them pigs got closer and closer, and all of a sudden they ran right in front of me, just right in front of me. Well, as they was running in front of me, there's a bunch of saplings over to the left of that, pretty good sized saplings to the left of that big old tree. That gumball tree, it's huge. They're huge around. They're 5 and 6 feet around. They're a great big tree. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I caught in my peripheral vision, I caught this black object, black. But I was so focused on all them friggin' pigs running by me, squealing and hollering and everything. And then I lost sight. This is all happening real fast. It just happens in seconds, Yeah. Well, that black object disappeared behind that tree, and then it reappeared in front of me. This is 1966. I had no idea. I'd seen bear, but this was no bear, because I kept this quiet for 56 years now. Mm. And I just started telling this. Matter of fact, Joe's show was the first time I ever told anybody. I was on Joe's show, and I told it on Russell's show, Mogg's show, and this actually is the third time I've told it right here. I just don't tell it a lot, okay? It took me years to get over this. The reason I think I started coming on YouTube was to validate what the dickens I saw, because it was 1982 before I ever seen the PG film. Mm-hmm. I had other things in my life to do. Sure. And when I saw that creature, I'm 18 years old. I went home and told my mother about it. Yeah. My mother had seen one. My mother was from East Tennessee. She's a mountain woman. She knew all about these things, and she's the one brought me back. I was white as a ghost when I walked in my home. And I was scared out of my wits. I mean, I couldn't sleep for 3 or 4 days. I went sleepless, you know. The first year, I was a nervous wreck. I didn't hardly sleep any. If I slept 2 hours a night, it was a miracle. Going to college and trying to do that, trying to have relationships and friendships. My first year, that year, my 18 to 19, I was effed up. I'm telling you, I was a messed up dude. But my mother kept talking to me and stuff like this. And thank God, my mother was a godsend, I'm telling you. And she made me realize that never to tell anybody about this, because I had the rest of my life to live. You know, I had my whole life in front of me. And she said, you know, if you tell anybody this, they're going to laugh at you. They're going to criticize you. They're going to call you crazy. They're going to call you fool. And you got your whole life in front of you, son. Just keep it between us. So I just didn't tell nobody. I never told nobody. And I had a lot of sleepless nights. I still see that damn thing to this day. To this day, it wasn't 20 feet from me. This thing was 20 feet from me. I'm not good on size. It wasn't 8 or 9 feet, but it was a good 7.5 feet. Had a chest on it that looked like a 55-gallon drum. Narrow waist. It wasn't fat. It was it wasn't like a football player, narrow waisted. It was more like not what you call square, but you could see its waist starting to form, and its legs were, oh my God, you can't believe how big this thing's arms and legs were. I'm starting to shake, guys. I'm sorry. When I get into this, I start shaking. Okay. And the reason I know it was something humanoid or something like us. It had no snout. It had a nose. I hate saying this. I say this. This is the third time I've talked about this. It had a nose like a black man's nose. You know how they widen out? Some of them do. Thin lips. It did have longish, not super longish hair, but its hair was kind of in a longish. I'll put it that way. Because when it ran back, this happened like 4 seconds, and then it disappeared through the woods he was still after those pigs. I don't think this thing even knew I was on the face of the earth. He was so in tune to hunting them pigs that he didn't even know I was around. Yeah. Okay. And I sat there for about 20 minutes, and I know I was in shock because I had never seen anything, and probably never will in my lifetime, anything like that. The reason I say this is the last thing I'm going to say. The reason I know it was more humanoid, because you guys have been in the woods. You know, when the woods, the sun starts streaming through the woods, you'll see those streaming streaks. Mm-hmm. Them streaks was hitting that thing, and its ear was exactly like my ear on the side of its head. It wasn't on top of its head. I'm just going to come out and say it. I don't believe in dog man. Okay. I'm not a dog man.
Perfectly. Yeah. I'm not a big dog man fan myself, but
its ear, that light hit that thing on the side of its head. I could see its face. I didn't see the face of it. All I saw was the profile, you know, yeah. And one of them light streams hit that thing, and I picked that ear up, and I can still see that ear to this day. That's what stood out to me more than anything of the whole creature. And that was my story. That's what happened to me.
So you're saying the ear was pretty flat to the head. It didn't come
right.
outward.
It looked like it was bigger than mine, of course, but it was right on the side of its head.
Well, first of all, Jay, let me thank you for sharing that with us. And I know it takes a toll when you tell it. I can tell that you've
Yeah,
had a lot of trauma because of that
yeah,
sighting. And we've talked about that on the show in the past. And I know you've heard that.
yeah.
So I want to thank you. And I know every time you tell it, it probably gets a little bit easier. So Jen made a great comment too. You're amongst family here.
Yeah.
So, I realize that. That's the reason I came. I don't want to take up the whole show, but that's the reason I started coming to. I didn't even know when I first started coming to YouTube. I came on for golf and fishing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I just happened to was scanning through one thing and saw a Sasquatch show. Matter of fact, I think it was Pat's show, and I punched on it. Leon was there. I can't remember. I know Leon was there. I think CC was there.
Yep.
And a few of those guys, and I just started listening to these people talking. I was watching chat, and I said, there's people out there exactly like me, you know?
Yeah. I've talked to, a number of people throughout the years that were credible, that I found credible. And Jay, when he told me his story, automatically he entered that group of people.
Yeah.
Of credible people. Because I could tell when he told that story on my show, I could tell just by his body, by his reactions when he was telling it, that this man's not making up a story. He's reacting to something that he saw, and so I know what that feels like myself. So yeah, man. Yeah.
Well, that was, go ahead.
Just like right now, my whole body is shivering. It makes me shiver sometimes.
Jay, this is the third time. This is the third time that I've heard you share your story, and I wouldn't say that it was difficult for you to convey what happened and the details and stuff, but honestly, it certainly wasn't easy. Obviously, each time, even now, it doesn't really get easier. And everybody's story has different elements. They're all uniquely different. And if it's any validation, all three times I've heard you share it, I knew that it was genuine the first time I heard it, but hearing it three times, I haven't heard any inconsistency or anything in the way that you tell it that would make someone feel that it's not believable or that this happened to you. So I would never worry about that here in the community. And quite honestly, if somebody was to say in chat they didn't believe you, it's not your burden to make them believe you. So just
like I've told everybody before, I could care less. I could care less, But
you said the most.
A lot of times I said a little bit more abrupt. I have to admit that, but I could care less.
You said the most. Yeah, you said the most important thing to all of us that we all caught, I think, was that, I went and the more I heard, the more I feel validated. You just wanted to feel validated.
Absolutely. That's all.
Yeah. And that's all a legitimate witness wants. And I could see out of the reaction and in your intonation that you're reliving it. And I've seen that before in legitimate witnesses. So again, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for telling your story. It means a lot to me.
You don't realize, even the people in chat, they're all friends of mine. You guys saved my life. I'm telling you, I've kept this for 56 years, folks. It's a lot of years to keep inside.
And Jay, it's never going to get easier to tell it, really. Because this is something that was so impactful when it happened to you that, it's not like after telling it 100 times, it gets easier. When I talk about my encounter, there are elements of it that really, they don't really get to me that much. And then there's I don't care if I've told it 500 times. When I talk about my friend's little brother and how it affected him and how seeing him react, I get tears in my eyes immediately because I feel like I'm there again, like this is happening again. Yeah. So You know, it's never going to get easier just because you told it 3 times or 10 times or 50 times. But I think that you do the community a blessing every time you care to share it, because there's always somebody hearing it for the first time. And you don't know if it's somebody like you who went 50 some years and didn't tell anybody. And now they're saying, hey, I feel like I can talk about what happened to me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the one who feels blessed, guys. Don't think I'm the one who feels blessed by finding you folks.
Well, you know what makes me feel blessed too is that tonight we're joined by our good friend Leon from Bigfoot Okanagan, and it's so good to see you, brother, again.
Good to see you, Leon.
I'm going to give you a different perspective. I'm just watching the show with fascination. I didn't come on earlier because, Jay, you were telling your story, and I wanted to hear your whole story. Joe, remember that film you sent me, the documentary we're going to be doing tomorrow?
Yes.
There's a reason why I'm talking about this. It all folds together, but what I'm watching on the screen right now with you guys. Remember the psychic part of that documentary?
Yes.
Okay, what I want you to do is watch it again and watch the psychic and watch where her eyes go. Always to this way. You're right. Always. Watch his body language with his eyes. It's not moving to the right at all. The other thing is, if you rewind the video later on after it's live, you rewind the video, you know how he said, just before he said, I'm shaking like that? There was one time his breath changed. It was the time when he came home and he saw his mom, and she saw that he went right into, that's when his breathing went really, really quick. I don't know if you guys caught it, but it's great body language to watch for. This guy is telling us totally what has happened. That's what he's telling you. Everything he's not.
I absolutely believe it. Yes.
But it's interesting for me watching this. The other thing that to me was, okay, if this guy was lying to us, say we don't know Jay, he's just on here with the show, all 4 of us, or 3 of us, you 3, would have been, doing, you're listening to what he's saying and all this kind of stuff, but your brain's just working on trying to figure out, is he missing something? And honestly, we all do that. That's what we're assessing data about. But the neat thing was all 4 of you shut up, or 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you shut up. And you shut up for the whole time. What does that tell you? You got 4 people who are critical thinkers listening to somebody, Jay, you need to hear this, listening to somebody tell a story that he's so terrified about that you can see physical reaction in his body, hyperventilating way before he even said, it really reacted. If you watch that whole body language, that's a real person there, experiencing something real in the moment. Watch his eyes. You can tell what, it's like when someone hugs you, you can either feel your hug go in, they can feel your hug go in, or you can feel both your hugs go in, or no one's hugs go in. And it's kind of the same way when you're looking at this level of what I get to see from just watching at home. I'm just sitting thinking, I tell you, we've come a long hell of a way, I'll tell you, in the last few years online. With quality, like with what Matt did the other day and what Pat did before then, and about just, come on, stop the craziness. That was a great line that Matt said in his video. No, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, you'll have to leave. I just can't do it anymore. I can't pretend. And it's just neat to watch you, like watching you 4 guys. Like I wanted to jump in a long time ago, but just watching what you do objectively from an observer's perspective. So I want to bring that angle in for you, Jay, too, is that, okay, the story, because I'm here, I'm not making a bloody sound, you don't have a camera on me, but these 3 or 4 guys are there listening to your story, and they're all shut up. So they can read your body language intuitively a bit as well, too. So that, and that you had it the whole time. You're not deceptive. I'm sorry that shit happened to you. I disagree a little bit with Jeff there, where he says you'll never get over it. I think you will get over it. You get over it by owning it. So you get over it. I get it.
Well, I'm not saying he won't get over it. I guess my point is it's always going to be probably to where it makes.
Let's start the first debate of the night.
What I meant was I think he's always going to feel emotional when he does it like that.
Yeah.
Where he feels like he has to say, I'm sorry, guys. And you don't need to do that, Yeah,
I didn't mean negative. That's to me. It's
and Jay, one thing that maybe I can suggest that helps is someday you get the time, write your story down on paper. If not for anybody to read, but for yourself, and reflect on it. And it will help you. I know it helped a lot with Brian Goslin, the police officer that his sighting, very much like you. He would get all breathy when he was reliving that, and he was reliving it right at the scene of where it happened. And I remember being there with him, and writing it down really took a lot. It gave him a lot of perspective.
I have to
Donald was saying that in
I have to turn my head. I can't hear nothing on my right ear. There's the reason you see I have to. My sound so low, I have to turn my head so I can hear you guys.
Well, Steve, Donald was saying that in chat. Donald Fuller's had a pretty, I would say, an encounter that he experienced that seems, when he talks about it in chat, and he hasn't talked about it in detail, just letting people know he's had this encounter, that it's difficult for him. And he said, I don't think I'll ever get, in chat things, I don't think I'll ever get to where I'm on screen.
Don, what you need to do is just write it down. Just start from the top. When you're writing about, tell how you feel. It's kind of a way of like journaling almost, but just write what you saw, write how you felt at the time, write how it made you feel, write how it made you feel afterwards. And write how, joining a community like this is helping you cope with what you had seen. And maybe it'll start putting those things into perspective for you.
Right. I kind of get what Jeff means, because even now, and especially like when I was talking to Leon and Thomas, and more so when I was talking to Leon specifically, and Leon was talking to me about it, because Thomas pretty much did his interview like he would interview any witness of it and went through that, but then Leon kind of delved into it differently and was asking me about specifics about the thing, and Leon took me right back to that spot in that instance, and I felt everything that I felt that day when I was talking to him. So I get what you're saying, and I probably always will feel that, because I can even if I think about, like my scalp is tingling now because I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about what I saw. And I think that's always going to happen to me, because when I think about what I saw, man, that was, So anyway, that's my point. I get what you're saying. And I think it is easier for me to tell the story now, but I do still have those reactions if I'm talking to somebody like Leon, who's asking me about it and knows how to actually take the person back to that moment. I'll probably always feel that stuff.
Well, I don't think I take anyone back there. I don't have super.
I don't know. You pretty much did with.
But I do try to get you back to your humanity, and that's what we're talking about. What you seen on Jay's face all night in that interview when he was telling the story was his humanity, and that's why we all shut up. That's why I was watching. That's why I realized I'm thinking and analyzing instead of I'm actually believing what this guy's saying, because your brain switches from your left to your right brain. Right? And so that's happening as I'm watching you guys, which I'm doing already. So you guys are reflecting, and I'm viewing at home. Remember, I'm not where, I know you guys are, but you're on the show kind of thing. And so it's just, it's humanity. It's raw humanity. And it's great to see, you guys like you guys all care for each other. It's nice to see that, I wasn't trying to be mean to Jeff earlier there about that idea.
No, I didn't think you were. No offense.
It's not mean to disagree.
I was curious though, like for Steve and Chris and Joe, you guys especially, as we were listening to Jay, one thing that I noticed is it made me realize that when I'm in person talking to somebody and they're sharing an encounter that happened where you can really see them, not just on a camera screen. When you really assess this and realize this person's sharing a genuine encounter, like I have no reason to doubt what this person's telling me. As they're sharing it, I almost feel like I gotta step backwards. Like I gotta give this guy space because of what they're feeling as I almost feel like that way with Jay, like when he's sharing that, even though I've heard this before, I feel like I kind of got to like lean back, like I want him to feel comfortable sharing it, and I don't want to be like in his face while he does. It's like he's going through something here. Let's all just step back and let him do it.
Yeah, just be there. Yeah.
I tell a lot of people. I tell a lot of folks, a lot of people in chat that you might want to watch out what you're wishing for if you ever see one, because I'm here to tell you, it changes your whole life. People.
Yeah, I bet it does.
People like Joe and myself and Jeff, they'll all agree with it. You cannot believe the enormity of the size of these things.
Yeah, pretty tall.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw was that just
Well,
height. But
I noticed that too when you talk to people who have had encounters. Somebody who's seen one from 100 yards away, or 150 yards away, whether it was crossing a road or it was on the other side of a field, they can usually share those details and share the experience. And even though they're a lot of times they're a little bit conflicted themselves with what they, like when I'm just saying, when you're 15, 20 feet away from one, you can check down every animal you know about, and none of them fit, right?
Yeah, you don't really
From
need to at that
150
point,
yards
do you?
away, I could see where even though you can't find one that fits, you're still in doubt a little bit. But, Jay, when you say you're 20 yards away from it, I mean, you're not like some kid who grew up in the inner city of Chicago and never seen a cow or a deer or a big animal before. I mean, you've been in the woods and you see this thing all of a sudden from 20 yards away. You might not have known that first second what it was, but you knew what it wasn't.
I quit hunting squirrels. I never went back in those woods ever again. I didn't quit hunting. I still bird hunted. I love to bird hunt too. I still bird hunted, but I haven't been squirrel hunting since. And I gave up a passion. The guys in Moggs's room, a lot of them told me, you need to go back to that spot. This May, me and my son, I went to visit my son, flew up there, and I went back. The big old gumball tree is still there. The stump is rotted away. It's still there, but it's not there. It's rotted a lot more, okay? We're talking about 50 years. And it was probably 30 or 40 years old stump when I was a kid sitting on it, okay? So that stump is almost gone, but it's still there, okay? I was going to film it. My son was filming it, and I told him when I sat down on what was left of that stump, I told my son, I said, turn that damn camera off.
Lock it.
I'm the one that has to deal with this. I know people want to see it, but I'm the one that has to deal with this. I told him, turn the camera off and just let me sit here a while. I sat there and I relived the whole thing with my eyes closed. Every second, from walking in those woods that morning, actually from getting up that morning, putting my hunting vest on, putting my hunting pants on. I can even tell you what shirt I had on. I had one of those red and black plaid shirts on. And I'd cut the sleeves out because it was too hot for sleeves. I can even tell you what I ate that morning. And I sat there and relived the whole thing till that thing went out of my sight. And I got up from that stump and I said, I'm ready to go. He said, well, we can't leave. Yeah, let's walk on down to because he knew that area some too. And I said, well, let's go down to the creek. So we walked down to the creek. It's about a 50-foot that straight downhill drop. We wandered down there and walked around a while. Came back up and I said, are you ready to go now? He said, yes. So we left. And this, people probably think this was childish, but I turned around and I shot that darn area of the bird. I said, you lived in my head for 55 years at the time. I said, you've been in my head for 55 years. And gosh dang it, I won. And I turned around.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Good for you, Jay.
Yep.
Brilliant.
And you're right. If you didn't want the camera to be on, that's for you. It's not for anybody else.
Yeah, I was the one that had to. I was the one that had to deal with this.
Yep.
You know.
I'm just pointing out again. All of us shut up there in that whole chunk there. You know?
Yeah.
Not a few out of any of us.
But thank God for my mother. My mother, she's the one. She told me. She said, "Jay, you got to come out of this because you got the rest of your life to live. You know, you're still a young pre-man, what she called me. You're a pre-man, and you got the rest of your life to live, you know. She just keep it quiet. Just don't tell nobody. I never even told my daddy. I never even told my father.
I wanted to mention, Jay, I was reading the comments, and Raptor had said, I thought, Jay, he thought your first experience was with you when you were with Stevie and them out in Arizona. And I just wanted to let Raptor know, actually, when Jay shared his version of what he decided to share with us and what happened in Arizona, one of the first things Jay said when he was sitting in the truck and looking out the front window was, God, don't tell me this is happening to me again.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was this.
Yeah,
this all happened way before Arizona.
I don't want to go. Stevie and Judy and I have decided that's us. We don't want to talk about it no more.
Yeah.
But I did whatever I saw. I have no clue to this day what we saw.
Yeah.
But I did when I saw that thing and I looked at it. Oh, it was. I know I stared at that thing for 5 or 6 minutes before I even said anything to Stevie. And I said out loud, I said, Stevie, I mean not Stevie. I said, Lord, why are you doing this to me again?
Wow.
And his answer was?
Oh. I don't think he answered me this time. I don't think he answered me this time.
Maybe he did. Maybe the answer was he helped you meet people like us, so to help you tell your story.
I probably would have asked him that as soon as the tire was blown out on the truck. Why are you doing this?
I mean, I don't want to. I mean, I'm not a researcher. I mean, I like to listen to all you guys, but I don't ever want to see one of them friggin' things ever again. Ever.
And Jay is one of those examples. There are people, man, like me, even though, it was scary. I'm over here being an investigator as a hobby for 45 years, and I want to see another one. Not like that, but I want to see another one.
Yeah, but I think
we got people like Jay who do see them.
Yeah.
And like, man, I don't ever want to see something like that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
you were in the idea, but he was not. He never did it was for the Patterson film and all that kind of stuff. So he was in there blind. So he experienced. You had years of 30 years of knowing about Sasquatch. Here, this guy, he knows nothing.
Right.
You know,
that's the other difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe I would react. Let's say I was in my 50s and I had Bigfoot has come on scene. Okay. It's been talked about, and I would know more about it. It might not have affected me the way I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know, but I just don't think it would have. I was an 18-year-old nobody, you know. I didn't know what a friggin' I didn't know what a Sasquatch was or a Bigfoot or whatever they call them friggin' things, you know. Yeah. I had no clue about them things, you know.
So as you see the little chat there.
Yeah, you're just finished reading it.
Yeah.
Not during the show.
They have time to research in parentheses. So, you know, hey, why don't you ask us that in person? The link's in the chat right there.
Sure, I'd let you pop on, ask us.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never made $1 researching. I've never made a living at it.
Well, no, they're asking you seem to be on every show. When do you have time to research?
Well, when do I have time to sell homes and be a real estate broker too? You know, and a dad. I got 2 kids. You know, somehow it all works out, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen him in a lot. I don't think he actually meant none of us, you guys. I don't include myself.
I hope not. I hope not.
No, I think he does. I think he does, but it's a fair question. And I'll tell you, for myself, Lil Kilroy, yeah, you're right. And I prefer investigator than researcher. I don't know why. It's just a little thing. I don't care. But because really what I do is investigate, you know, really is what I call it. The reason I'm on it, yeah, I am doing this right now because you're right. I can't get out into the woods right now. But I used to be out there before the health issues and some financial problems. I used to be out there quite often. But yeah, you're right. We're on a lot of shows right now because I'm doing what I can to try to bring awareness to, you know, some of the just outright BS that's being propagated online. That's what I'm trying to do. So that's my answer.
Well, I would say don't fall into the trap of thinking that was an innocent question. That was a question made to get a rise out of somebody. And, you know, the fact is all researchers are different. There's going to be researchers that are probably out in the field for 3-4 months at a time. And there's others that go camping 5 times a year. And while they're on a 3 or 4 day trip, they're out trying to research whatever they can discover. I mean, this idea that a researcher punches a clock from 8 to 5 every day is a little ridiculous.
Morning, Ralph. Morning, Fred. Remember that? Wile E. Coyote in the
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Morning. See you later, George. Yeah, later. Yeah. Like
it would be nice to be out there every day.
Absolutely.
Or at least every other day hitting it hard. I mean, doing 8 to 12, maybe even 16 miles a day in the woods, trekking, looking.
I can tell you this, Chris. Last year, well, it's been almost, every Thursday and every Friday, 2 days a week, I did it. And I'm talking like from 5 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, kayaking up a river, kayaking back down it. Next day, kayak. I did in 37 weeks. I kayaked almost 1,100 miles, and I can tell you, my body's not made for it. It took me literally 2 or 3 months just to recover from that kind of a regimen.
Yeah,
I did.
I
get people saying, "Let's go do this. Let's go do that." I'm like, dude, you got to find somebody 20 years younger than me. I love to go out for 3 or 4 days, but I'm not going to commit to a month of this or a month of that anymore.
Yeah, I'd like to get with Matt. I live in Florida now. I don't live about 80 miles from Matt, Central Florida, Bigfoot. And I've told Matt I'd like to get with him, but I know what that sucker's going to do. He's going to set me out there and use me for bait. I know exactly what he's
doing. Hey, I know, Matt, if he puts a pork chop necklace around your neck, check out. No, Matt's a great dude. So
he's a good guy. I like Matt.
It takes some mileage though to get results, and then even then you're not guaranteed. You're not guaranteed.
Here's the thing. Here's what I'd like to say to Little Kilroy: is I don't publish everything I do. In fact, it's very, very little that I do in the woods goes out. Very little, because I have my protocols, and then when it's time to put it out, if it's worthy, it goes out.
Well, look at Joe. Joe's been hunting 44 years. He's had one encounter, and it was by chance. He wasn't even looking for it that day. Your chances of seeing one of those things is 1 in 10 zillion.
Well, Jay, as a hunting guide here, I'm a registered guide in South Dakota, guiding pheasant hunters and mule deer hunters. But I'm part of a network of guides that my dad was a member of. That's 42 different guides, and they're in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho. These are guys that don't just go to the park, the campground 10 miles out of town. These are guys that know what wilderness looks like in the middle of nowhere. And I have talked to about at least 15 of them, asking them if they've had any experiences or encounters that they can't explain. And out of the 15 or so that I've talked to, I've heard from, I think, a total of 3 that have said, yeah, this time I had something thrown at me, or I heard something and I know it wasn't wolves or coyotes, and they're not even talking about Class A, I saw it. And so out of those 15, there's 12 of them that made a living over 100 days a year being immersed in the middle of nowhere that never had anything happen to them.
Well, see, that's another thing, too. The chances of them throwing something, you hearing a tree knock, I never heard nothing. I hunted those woods since I was 9 years old. For my whole life, I never heard a whoop. I never heard a yell. You see tree breaks. When you go in the woods, you're going to see tree breaks. You're going to see limbs that are bent over. You're going to hear tree limbs fall. That's just part of being in the friggin' woods, But I never heard a snort. Well, I did hear deer snort. Don't get me wrong. But I never, and I saw carcasses. Of course, you're going to see that. But I never heard anything that would enlighten me. There was anything like that.
Like what you saw?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's for those who have seen and experienced things, I consider it a blessing, but I've dealt, and that's why it's different for Joe and different for Jay and different for everybody else. I've dealt early in life with PTSD. So when I had my encounter, I already had been past the PTSD stage because I was a paramedic for a number of years, and I saw some really bad stuff. So, and I was affected by it for a number of years, but eventually I learned to cope with it and understand it, and eventually now it's out of my system. So when I had that sighting, it didn't affect me like other people who, it would give them. To me, I had been researching so long anyway. That's what I want to do. I wanted to see it. So when I saw it, it was like, okay, it still played very big into my mind.
Yeah, but it equipped you. It equipped you to stand and bear under it. Whereas before, like with Jay, he couldn't stand and bear under it. That's why
exactly.
He didn't let it go. Right? So,
and I think having the experience with PTSD early in life kind of helped me for this, for this type of thing where it was like, okay, I'm not gonna. Reality. I know I'm not worried about going to bed anywhere or and I just moved on with my life. But what I did is because of that and knowing my background, that's why people I don't know if anybody knows Dave Groves. Dave was another guy who had a really hard time. Joe knows Dave. He had a really hard time getting a handle on his sighting. So I had a long talk with him. It was actually at the Cabela's Strange and Mysterious Weekend one day. And I remember telling him, listen, Dave, I said, you're worried. The biggest thing is you're worried about validation. You're worried about what people are going to think about you. Dave, you come up on stage with me. I've heard your story. Come up on stage with me. Tell your story. Not one person is going to say anything bad to you. And I did. I was talking and I said, I want to bring up a person whose story I believe is a legitimate story. Put him up there. He told it. And when he came off the stage afterwards, it was like a big weight had been off my chest.
Yeah.
And, so thank you so much, Jay. I know how tough it is for you again.
Yeah,
and,
for sure. Makes sense. Yeah.
But we are starting to wind down. We got 6 minutes left to show. So
let's talk about UFOs. Why not? We got 6 minutes. We can solve that in 6 minutes.
I am going to say one more thing. The glide of that thing was so. When it ran by me, the glide of it was so. I'm actually going to say the word graceful.
Right.
It was unbelievable how smooth that thing came by me.
It was fluid.
And its stride was so long because it was running, And I told this, I think I said on Joe's show, I believe I've thought of this over the years. I believe he was herding those things because he was running so effortlessly. He could have caught one of them smaller pigs anytime he wanted to. I think he was herding those things because we did have a pinch point in those woods. There was a trail in front of me in that tree, and there was actually a trail back behind me right on top of that ridge. And I think he was, to this day, I think he was herding those pigs to a pinch point down there.
And not to add to your stress, but maybe there was another one waiting down at that pinch point.
Yeah, well, I've
The
thought of that many times over the years. Okay,
They're having a pig drive, and that was the blocker down there.
But, you know, if anything, you know, interviewing all the people over the years, and I had a really great mentor when I first got into this, who interviewed, you know, hundreds of people on this topic, and he'd been doing it since the early 70s, Bill Brand. And one thing you said to me, Jay, that really resonated with me, and it almost, when I hear it, it almost, to me, makes this validation saying, hey, this is the real deal, is when you mentioned about the ear. Because in a lot of people, when they make their sightings, the legitimate ones always have something they pick out that really stands out to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember talking to, separately, mind you, two 13-year-old boys, 12-year-old boys. I forget what age they were. They were somewhere between 12 and 14, I think. And I remember them each saying, which stood out to them was, you know, what did you see? Well, it had breasts. They saw a female. Very strange for a 12-year-old or a preteen to be talking about a Sasquatch that has breasts.
Yeah.
But they're boobs, man. Right?
Yeah. But here's the
noticed the Sasquatch. I just saw the boobs.
So
here's on the
here's
12-year-old.
But here's the amazing thing about that. I was at, it shows you what a small world it is. I was at a party yesterday at my neighbor's house because they were having a big party, a bouncy house for the kids. And they said, why don't you come on over? Blah, blah, blah. So I go on over and, you know, I'm introducing some of the party goers and, you know, my neighbor's introducing, and all of a sudden one guy looks at me. He goes, I know you. You do? He goes, yeah, I was a little kid who had the Bigfoot sighting up on, and it was one of the two kids.
Wow.
What a small world.
Wow. I saw the Sasquatch boobs. Yeah.
It's interesting though, Jay. Jay, it's interesting that you say one of these most things that really stick with you is its gait or the way that it moved. Because I've got a guest coming on next month. I'm going to be interviewing Michael Freeman, who's the son of Paul Freeman, who shot the Freeman footage. And he just finished writing a book about this. And he said over the years, all the times his dad's talked about, the one thing his dad kept impressing on him is that the whole time this thing moved, its knees were always bent. It never held its legs straight, and it moved with such fluidity that you couldn't even tell it was taking steps.
Yep, absolutely. That's what this thing's knees were bent the whole time. And that's what spooked me so bad was when I sat there in shock, was because when that light was streaming in there, and one of them rays must have hit that ear perfect. That's what spooked me so much, because there's nothing in those woods supposed to look like that. Bears don't have ears on the side of their head. You know, there's nothing in those woods that's
supposed
to be like that.
Bipedally either.
Well, that's true.
And you hear people, that's what makes people, I think, all the time try to bring up this idea that there's some supernatural explanation to how it moves without making sound and how it moves so quickly and this and that. And I'm just thinking, you know, I wrestled with that for a long time in my encounter. How did it get from A to B, like 40, 50 yards and not make any noise? But the more you realize, when you pay attention to these encounters and these descriptions of how it's moving, you realize that if you lived in the woods 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for decades, maybe it's just that freaking good at it that we can't wrap our head around how good you could get at moving like that.
Or maybe your mind is trying to make sense of what it's seeing, that it's not really paying attention to what it's hearing.
That's true.
Yep.
I know why I didn't hear it, because them pigs, there was 30 or 40. They're all squealing at, you wouldn't hear nothing but those pigs.
It's a big ruckus there.
Yeah, that's why I didn't hear it.
I think Steve's touched on something that Leon could probably opine about for a while. I mean, once one of your senses is shot so badly that
the rest
does that desensitize everything else?
The rest goes to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, well, I think that's exactly what the problem is. Again, when you're objectively thinking of systems, you look at the human being or person as a system, because the bottom line is it's got nothing to do with any of the experiences. It's your 5.5 pounds of jellies of chemicals and pharmaceuticals that are working in your brain that are trying to make sense of all this. So the more life experiences you have, they become files in your brain. And so Jay, when his experience happened, and Joe, when his experience happened, yours, Jeff, your brains all went in your primal brain, went at the speed of light to every one of those bloody file cabinets, trying to make some contextual sense of what the hell and put pieces together. And the problem is, it came down to the end of the files, and there's nothing there. And that's what you see on Jay when you see
after I came.
There's nothing here, so there should be a file, some kind of reference point. So you're using all the other files that can't quite explain it when you're telling your story or trying to put yourself together psychologically. And so that's when I'm talking about the information he's getting by knowing that. Look, it's important that you know that for a guy like me who's online, I look at you and I say, online, publicly, oh my God, oh my reputation. It's like, this guy's telling you the truth. Again, Joe, watch that video of that psychic and then watch her eyes, what she does compared to what his eyes do. You'll see a lot of data that's in that. And it's just like, you can see delusional makeup thinking. And then you can see when he's fabricating, but he's fabricating in a healthy way with where he's drawing and trying to sort out what he's trying to say to us. And if you watch his eyes, you'll see if he's in his mind, outside in an event. A lot of times, the last story he said when all you guys became quiet again, he went kind of back like this. Oh, he did something else there too. Can't quite remember what it was, but it automatically made all you guys just quiet right enough. Just again, you're talking to a genuine guy. He's telling you a genuine story from what, do you trust him? Well, do you trust you? Your suspicions you have about everybody in the world because you came up from a dysfunctional family. Well, I don't trust them. Well, how are you going to know the truth when it's sitting in front of you? You can't recognize it. That's kind of what I'm really proud of. It's only taken years for a shift to start happening. And that whole idea about what Steve, Steve, you've been in since the beginning, man. And so, and you think of how long it's been where you can get a group of.
Well, I don't know if I've been in since the beginning. I mean, I'm not quite as old as Grover Krantz or John Green, but
okay, right. You're right. I'm sorry.
Well,
I apologize.
He's definitely been in since the beginning of Stop the Woonacy.
That's right.
yeah, totally.
So, guys, it is time to wrap the show up. I want to thank each and every one of you for popping on. And it's so good to see everybody. Jeff, it's been a while. Good to see you, brother.
Yep.
Good to see you, Leon, of course, back in action. Joe, I'll see you hopefully in another couple of weeks. And Jay, thank you once again for your contribution tonight. And I look forward to seeing you in the chat in future weeks. So with that, Chris, do your thing, Chris.
Well, again, I want to thank Joe, Leon, Jay, and Jeff. Appreciate y'all coming on here. Thanks again, Jay, for letting us in on your encounter, your experience. We really appreciate that. And if it's the first time watching on YouTube, guys, give us a like, give us a subscribe, share it. Anything you can do to help us out with the algorithm so we can be found. We appreciate it. I want to thank everybody in chat and all the listeners on the podcast. We appreciate you guys too. Stop by the YouTube channel and check out the videos.
And give us some love. Okay, folks, on behalf of everybody here at Squatch-D TV, we want to wish everybody a happy, safe, and healthy week. And, of course, God bless and keep on squatching. We'll catch you all here next week, Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on SquatchDTV.com.
Hey folks, you've been watching Squatch-D TV. Join us each week, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for the latest on the Bigfoot mystery. As always, we thank you for being our loyal viewers and encourage all to subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Steve Kulls. As always, have a great week. Stay safe. God bless and keep on squatching.